Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a strawberry pie and also a quick and easy country supper. So we went strawberry picking at a local farm near our house, and I had some really great help with my niece and my nephew who are probably watching this video, so shout out to you two for all the help in the strawberry field. So to begin with, for the strawberry pie, you're going to need a pre-baked pie crust. I used a frozen Pillsbury pie crust. The back of the packaging will tell you how to bake that beforehand. So follow those instructions and let that pie crust cool before you make your pie. So what you're seeing me do here is take 1 cup of sugar and adding it to a small saucepan, to which I'm now adding 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. Once you have your cornstarch added, you'll start with a pack of strawberry gelatin. You will take 3 tablespoons of that package and add it to your sugar and your cornstarch that you've already got in your pot. Now with those ingredients in my pot, I'm going to add a cup of water in just a moment. Remember that below in the description box are the recipe, including all the measurements and instructions that you'll need to make these recipes in case you have a hard time following me in the video. As you mix your cup of water with the rest of your ingredients in the pot, you want to turn your heat up to about a medium-high heat and bring this to a boil, and you want to make sure that you are continuing to whisk this as it begins to boil, because it can stick and burn to the bottom of your pot, so you don't want that to happen. So make sure you do that, and you'll see in just a few moments what that should look like once it thickens up after it boils for a few minutes. So the next thing you'll do is take 1 quart of your strawberries that you're using. Make sure they have been washed and dried pretty well, or at least most of the water drained off of them. And what I'm doing here is just slicing those strawberries in half. You can quarter them if you want to. I like to leave ours in larger slices for this pie, but however you choose to do it is up to you. But once you get your pie crust filled with your strawberries and your syrup has finished cooking, then what you'll do is pour it over the top of your strawberries before putting it in a refrigerator to chill for a few hours. As you can see here, our syrup has thickened quite a bit. That's due to both the cornstarch and the gelatin that we've added to the mixture. But remember, once it has boiled for at least 5 minutes, you want to pull that off the stove and let it cool before you add it to your strawberries. Otherwise, what will happen is your strawberries will essentially cook and become mushy. So make sure to let that syrup cool before you add it to your pie. Once you have the syrup added, let your pie chill in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours. The longer the better. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how to make mashed potatoes. I'm using a pressure cooker to cook my potatoes. I'm using red potatoes. I'm quartering them after they've been washed, and I'm following the instructions for my pressure cooker to make sure they're cooked all the way through, which takes about 10 minutes from the time it reaches pressure. If you would rather cook your potatoes on a stovetop in boiling water, or if you have an instant pot, you can do that as well for this recipe. But once the pressure cooker has unlocked, I take the potatoes and I place them in a large mixing bowl, and you're going to see me use a potato masher to mash those potatoes. Now, I leave the skins on. You can peel the skins if you don't want them, but to me it adds flavor, texture, and it's a good source of fiber too. But I mash my potatoes, and they're still going to be kind of chunky, and that's on purpose. If you would rather have yours creamier, you could always use a mixer, a hand mixer, or a stand mixer, and beat it until the potatoes have been essentially whipped with the other ingredients in just a moment. Now what you're seeing me add is 4 tablespoons of powdered buttermilk. If you've watched other of my videos, you've seen me use powdered buttermilk. I love having that in our refrigerator for recipes like this instead of having fresh buttermilk available. And what I do is I add 4 tablespoons of the powdered buttermilk to 1 cup of water that I add to the potato mixture. You can use 1 cup of buttermilk instead if you don't have powdered buttermilk, so that is an option. You also see me add 2 tablespoons of butter as well as 2 heaping tablespoons of mayonnaise. Once I add all of this to my potatoes, I'm going to just take a large spoon and mix this together. Then I'll add some salt and pepper, stir it together again, and taste it to make sure it has enough salt. Sometimes it takes more salt than it does pepper to get the flavor correct, but again, stir it, taste it, and when you get it to how you like it, then you know it's ready to eat. The next thing I'm going to show you how to make is fried Cubesteak. I begin with my cast iron skillet, to which I'm adding about a 1/4 cup of oil to it, and I'm going to preheat this skillet at about a medium heat on my stovetop while I bread my Cubesteak in just a moment. For this recipe, I like to use pork Cubesteak. I get it at my local butcher. Some grocery stores may not have pork Cubesteak. You can always use beef Cubesteak and just adjust the cooking time as needed. Now what you see me doing is seasoning my steaks with salt, pepper, and garlic powder. I do not measure this, I just sprinkle it on both sides. This is totally up to your taste. And what's good about this recipe is you can omit garlic if you don't like it, or you can add other flavors such as onion powder, paprika, maybe even some cayenne pepper if you want to add a little heat to yours. It's totally up to you to make it how you like, but for us, we like that simple combination of salt, pepper, and garlic powder. Once I've seasoned both sides, I have a pile of all-purpose flour, and I have this meat and flour on a piece of wax paper just for easy cleanup. And what I'm doing is taking the steak and I'm just essentially baptizing it in flour, making sure it's pressed into the crevices really good, and then moving on to the next steak as the skillet's heating up. One way I like to check and see if my oil's hot enough for frying is sprinkle a little bit of flour into it, and when I see it sizzling like that, I know it's ready for my steaks. And so what I do is I'm only cooking 4 pieces of Cubesteak. It fit perfectly in the skillet, so I added it to the oil, and I'm going to let this cook for 5 minutes per side. Again, if you choose to use beef Cubesteak, you want to make sure that you adjust the cooking time as appropriate for the beef. But I find that for the pork, it cooks quickly and perfectly in 5 minutes per side. One tip I will tell you is the longer that you cook Cubesteak, the longer you fry it on a stovetop like this, it can actually make it tougher and chewier. So ideally, you want to cook it as least amount of time as possible until it's finished so that you have a tender piece of meat. Now I'm going to show you how to make homemade gravy. Now this is a gravy that is totally adaptable to your taste. What I'm doing is I have reserved the pan drippings, the grease from my Cubesteak, and I'm leaving the temperature of my skillet on about a medium heat. And I've added to it 2 heaping tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to whisk this together and let it cook for about a minute as it browns on the stovetop. And to this mixture, I'm going to add 2 cups of chicken broth. Now, if you don't have chicken broth or would prefer to use milk, you can do the same concept here. I didn't have milk on hand, so I chose to use chicken broth, and it makes more of what I would call a chicken gravy. But milk gravy is great too for this recipe. So whatever you want to use, you do it. Try both of them and make sure to comment below and let me know which one you prefer. But this is the finished product. You can always add salt and pepper to that gravy as needed. I love the gravy on my cube steak and my potatoes. But here's my plate. I like to add some pickled beets to my plate, some freshly chopped Vidalia onions for a delicious meal that I promise you'll love. And now it's time to partake of the strawberry pie. Make sure you like this video. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Comment below, let me know how it turns out. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll come back and see us.